Welcome to Living Fully. Each episode is a chance to talk about mental health in a way that's simple, honest, and helpful. We'll share stories, tips, and tools to help you feel supported and feel your best. I'm your host, Catherine Hertig. Today, I'm talking with Rasha Taha, counselor with Calgary Counselling Centre and Counselling Alberta, about LGBTQ+ mental health and the importance of Pride Month. In this episode, we explore identity, self-understanding, and the emotional complexity of coming out, both to yourself and to others. We also talk about how experiences like acceptance, rejection, discrimination, and belonging can deeply affect mental health, and why curiosity, compassion, and community matter so much for people in the LGBTQ+ community. Today, I'm here with Counsellor Rasha Taha. Thanks for being here.
For sure, always.
So June is Pride Month, and so we're going to be talking about that. And also just LGBTQ mental health and unique challenges that this community can come up against when it comes to mental health. I'm excited to talk to you about this.
Me too.
So to start off, can you talk to us a little bit about the history of Pride Month and kind of where that started?
Yeah. So just to start us off, LGBTQ2S+, folks, feel free to look it up. It's a mouthful. Throughout this episode, I will use queer and trans folks.
Okay.
As just to avoid the alphabet and having to stumble through it. So
sounds good.
Just kind of putting that out there. So in terms of the history, it's actually really neat, and I don't know how widespread this fact is that Pride started as a riot. So a lot of people know this, but not a lot of people actually know that it started as a movement that was initiated by trans Black women.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know that before researching this.
Yeah, so
episode.
it's really, really important to put that out there that Pride from the jump has been intersectional. And it's really important even to vocalize the names of these women. And so I have them here. So it was started by Sylvia Rivera, Miss Major, and Storme de la Rivera. So it's really important to be able to vocalize that in order to pay respect to those women who put their lives on the line in order for us to have the freedom to be able to love who we love and to have pride. The raid that happened on June 28 in 1969 in New York City, it was at the Stonewall Inn. So that's when the riot broke out, started by these women, and it gained a lot of momentum. And then the first Pride marches were in 1970, since then.
It's wild to think about kind of an occasion that we're really kind of used to now, like Pride Month, Pride celebrations, Pride Parade, but to really look back at the origins of this and how it started, yeah, that's really important.
And of course, things evolve over time, but we need to be really mindful of acknowledging the history and acknowledging kind of ground zero of where this started. It started as a riot. It started a riot against police who were oppressing these folks. Yeah. And so it's important to be able to acknowledge that, yes, today we celebrate Pride. We also need to celebrate the fact that it started as a riot, as a movement of resistance.
Yeah. Rasha, why is it still important to recognize Pride today, to have that time every year to celebrate and acknowledge it?
We've definitely come a really long way since then, right? There's been a lot of groundbreaking rights coming through for queer and trans folks, and there's also been quite a bit of turmoil and challenges and bills and laws passed against trans and queer folks. And so it's still really important to increase visibility, to increase awareness of the challenges that folks experience within those communities.
Yeah, because I would think if you're not in the community, if you don't have someone in your life in the community, you can kind of think like, oh, well, we've made lots of strides. Yeah. Like, what's the big deal? Yeah,
exactly. And yet, queer and trans folks still experience a ton of oppression. They experience discrimination. There's so many things so many barriers that still get in the way of queer and trans folks being able to live their full, authentic lives. And even though, yes, I want to acknowledge the progress that we have made, and we still have a lot of work to do. And Pride is a time for us to celebrate, for us to be able to look back and acknowledge the work that has been done, and also for us to look towards the work that still needs to be done.
And you said there's been a lot of, the whole episode is what we're going to get into, but like you said, LGBTQ experience oppression and discrimination. That's going to impact mental health, I would assume.
Of course.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Huge. Rasha, what do you think people sometimes misunderstand about Pride Month or Pride celebrations in general?
I think kind of going back to what we talked about earlier, that it is just a party, that it is just hey, it's a time for us to party and celebrate. And yes, absolutely. And there's a ton of awareness that we could be raising. There's a ton of education that we could be doing.
And when you say awareness, what does that mean to you?
To me, that means a bunch of things. But the first thing that comes to mind is elevating queer and trans voices and experiences, bringing them to the surface, letting people know that we're here, that we exist in our full selves, that we are fighting every day to be able to do that. And so elevate is really what comes up for me in terms of awareness, is to put it on people's radars. And we do get June of each year to, in a way, unabashedly do that because it is known worldwide as Pride Month. So we do get to be quite loud about it. Not to say we don't get to be loud the other months of the year, but it's a month for us to be able to really...
Yeah, it's good to set aside that designated time.
Yeah, exactly.
So when I hear LGBTQ, like one of the things that comes to mind is this idea of identity. So whether that's someone's gender or sexual orientation, like it's a part of who you are. And yeah, like, do you agree? Like, is that a big part of it? Like how someone identifies?
For sure.
Yeah.
Exactly as you mentioned, it's a part of who they are. They are still a whole person.
Yeah.
Outside of that and including that. I think sometimes we miss the mark on siloing people into a particular identity.
Yeah, like the label. Yeah.
And we completely miss the fact that they also have different roles in their lives. They also have different identities. And so whenever we talk about intersectionality, this is something that comes up. The experience of a Black woman is different than the experience of a white woman.
Yeah.
And that's one intersection. And now add lots of different identities and different intersections and different cultural backgrounds, different XYZ million and 10 things, and each person has a very unique set of identities that makes them them, and that will shape how they move through the world. And that's something that we do need to take into consideration when talking about queer and trans folks, is it's a part of their identity, and it takes up a different allotment of their lived experience, but it's not the entire thing.
Of course. And how does our identity, how we see ourselves, how we categorize ourselves, that kind of thing, how does that shape our mental health?
I think the two things are deeply intertwined, because I think someone's mental health plays a part in them discovering their identity, coming to terms with their identity. I kind of see them as being super interwoven. And when I talk about mental health, it's such an integral part of who we are that it has a say in everything that we do and everything that we experience, and all the reflections that we can have and revelations about ourselves, and et cetera, and et cetera. And so someone learning about their identity, whether it's early on, whether it's later on in life, whenever it is, and our identity is always evolving and changing and doing all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
But our mental health has a big say in how we get to kind of integrate that identity into our lived experience. And so, for example, let's say someone is experiencing a pretty intense bout of depression. they're likely not going out and expressing their identity in this fullest form. Let's say they're trans, and at one point in time in their life they were super proud of that. Then they experience a pretty intense bout of depression. Their gender expression might be stifled as a result of the depression.
Right. Yeah.
So maybe through example, it's kind of, we're able to pinpoint a little bit more about the interwovenness between the two and how one affects the other and vice versa.
Definitely. Yeah, Rasha, so when I was a kid, obviously, like, you know, when you're little, you don't really think about these things, but, you know, you get a bit older, your self-identity starts forming, and, you know, these different pieces start coming together. Like, I, you know, at a certain point knew, hey, that boy's kind of cute. Like, I'm attracted to boys. But my assumption is that kids and youth, if they experience a different identity, what challenges might come up if they realize they, you know, are attracted to the same gender, or that they identify with a different gender, that kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Yes. I think this is definitely a multi-layered, multifaceted question.
Yeah.
Because we have to take into consideration how youth are socialized. Automatically, kids are gendered right off the bat based on their anatomy, and then they're put into particular boxes based off of that assigned gender.
For sure.
And so for kids who are having experiences where they're finding themselves possibly falling outside of that quote-unquote norm, there can be a lot of confusion there. There can be a lot of, is it me? Am I quote-unquote weird or different in a bad way? And the way that people in their life respond to that, namely adults in their lives, respond to that is going to shape how they end up perceiving themselves and how that journey plays out. And so kids who are shamed for wanting to, let's say, put on different clothing that isn't necessarily for their, again, assigned gender, if they're shamed for that, then that's going to discourage them from wanting to delve deeper into what identity they may have.
Yeah.
And when we put shame and guilt and those feelings onto it, we're not likely to want to explore it. There's an element of almost self-alienation, of there's something wrong with me, I should bury it. I should not pay attention to this. And that leads to more therapy later on in life, right? For folks to go through that self-realization of, oh, I am this, I am that, whatever it may be. There's more hurdles in the way. So I do think that how we as adults, caregivers, community members, how we specifically interact with kids and youth who are on this self-discovery journey, whatever that their identity is, encouraging them and giving them unconditional love and support is going to help them experience the least amount of turmoil through that. And it's going to help them feel seen and heard rather than feel shame or guilt or any kind of rejection about who they are.
And what does that look like? I mean, I'm kind of thinking back to how I talked to my stepson when he was little, and we just tried to like really normalize all of it. Some people have two dads, some people have two moms. Yeah. Like, how do you approach it with that love and normalizing, but also realizing that they are going to run into others that don't approach it the same way. They don't approach it as compassionately or...
I think that is ultimately the dance that parents, let's say specifically in this example, whether it's parents or caregivers or family, people who are in the lives of youth, that's the dance that they end up having to strike and having to balance of, we want to show our kiddos unconditional love and support and care and help them advocate for themselves, especially when you take into consideration more rural areas, different cultural norms, or different parts of the world where, let's say, religion plays a big part in how people get to love and exist. And I'm saying religion specifically here in terms of some organized religions don't, quote unquote, allow for different identities to exist.
Yeah.
And so I think that is something that we contend with regarding, we want kiddos and youth to be comfortable being themselves, And we want them to be able to stand up for themselves and advocate for themselves and feel confident in who they are while still being able to risk manage, because there are some real...
Yeah, because we can't pretend that those challenges don't and won't exist.
Yes, we can't be naive about that, because it is absolutely a matter of safety. And trans kids are unfortunately way more likely to experience harassment and bullying and et cetera, and like real violence as a result of who they are. And so those are realities that we do need to talk about, we do need to put out there, while still being able to validate those identities and say you are allowed to be out and proud and loud about who you are while still being mindful of risk. So it's just such a delicate balance that I wish we didn't have to do.
Sure. Yeah.
But ultimately, it is important to manage risk in that way.
For someone who is questioning or exploring, like whether this is a youth or adult, what kinds of support can make that process feel a bit safer, feel a bit more manageable?
I think, and this was something I wanted to also address in the previous question, I think folks stepping into curiosity, I genuinely do believe that for folks exploring themselves, being curious about that and coming at it from a non-judgmental lens, but also for people in their lives, those people showing up in a curious way can be deeply supportive, rather than making judgments, rather than making assumptions, recognizing that each person's unique lived experience is individualized for them. And while, yes, we can have similarities with different experiences, ultimately being able to see each person for who they are, I think coming at it from that curious lens is going to help that person feel the most seen, because your experience is different than my experience, even if we both share the same letter in the acronym.
Yeah. When someone decides to share their identity with others, what are some of the emotional, mental considerations that can come with that?
Again, quite layered.
Every question in this is going to be so layered. This is a giant cake. Yeah.
It's a rainbow cake.
Yes. Yay.
I think that is something that is so dependent on context and people's unique experiences. And I think there's a misconception that once someone comes out, in parentheses, that's it. They've come out once and they're good to go.
Yeah.
But in reality, folks have to come out all the freaking time. It's actually quite annoying.
Have you found that to be your own experience?
Absolutely. Yeah. I've been out to myself for almost 2 decades now.
Yeah.
Out to most people for about the same, like out to the world for about the same time. And it's not just, when I found this out, I get to just tell my people, and that's it.
Yeah.
Because you meet new people. You're out in different parts of life. These things come up. People go, are you queer? Yes, I am. Oh, how did you know? Oh, okay, we're going to go through the story again and again and again.
Yeah.
And so it's not just a one and done. You don't just get to wear a badge on your head that tells the world that this is how you identify. Sometimes I think it would be easier if that was the case for me.
Yeah.
But I think that people underestimate that it's a constant process that people go through for most of their life, if that's what they choose, if they choose to be visibly out, let's say, or if they choose to talk about it. And sometimes it could just be easier to choose to not talk about it.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't make someone less queer, less trans, whatever it may be.
For sure.
It's just you don't always have to go to bat every single time someone asks you.
Yeah.
We're allowed to say, you know what, I don't feel like talking about it.
That's a really good point to make.
Yeah, I'm XYZ and I'm, I don't really want to talk more about that.
Yeah, for sure.
We don't have to explain or justify ourselves to people just because they're asking, and we can do that obviously respectfully.
Yeah.
But people aren't owed our stories, and that applies for everyone. That's not just... Right, that's not just for queer and trans folks. That's everyone of every walk of life. No, we don't owe anyone else our story. We choose to share our story.
Yeah. And that question, how did you know, is that one you get a lot?
For sure.
Yeah.
I think, and again, that's something that's so unique to each person. My journey looks so different than other people's
Yeah.
journeys. And yeah, while we tie string in between one person and the next, and there's some familiarity or there's some commonality between one experience and the next, it's not fair to say, oh, everyone's experience who falls under this particular subcategory of the queer identity experiences X, because it depends on whether they're out, it depends on their family supports, it depends on their friends, it depends on their place of work.
Like so many things.
I can list probably thousands of things that will play a part in how they experience themselves and their identities.
I guess, like you said, that curiosity, as people, we want to understand and we want to put things in boxes and labels just to better understand an experience that's not our own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
How can coming out, both to ourselves or to other people, how can it bring a sense of relief but also new stress and vulnerability?
I think exactly like you identified, a sense of relief can be a factor of being able to come to terms with an identity that a person has been able to name, and also recognizing that it's not a switch of, yay, I am this. No, I am not. Even I can speak for myself. When I realized I was queer, like, okay, yay. But then there's the lived experience of what it's like to move through the world with that identity.
Yeah.
And in a way, living that identity and exploring that identity has been a constant process over the last couple of decades of my life. And looking back on 20-something-year-old me, looking at, oh, I am queer. I had a very different understanding of it back then than I do now. And so that's why I like to see it as a journey, because it has been a journey that has evolved over time as I have grown to learn more about myself, more about how I relate with other people, what I like, what I don't like, etc. So there's so many different factors that play into it.
And that coming out process to other people, and let's just kind of limit this to people, you're close with, family and friends. How can their reaction to that, what impact can that have on mental health? Like if they approach it with curiosity or acceptance or something else.
Yeah. My absolute favorite response to, let's say, again, using myself as an example, me saying, hey, I am XYZ, whatever it may be, is cool. Onwards we go.
Yeah.
And yes, obviously curiosity is wonderful and we love it. And there's something to be said about just not putting a spotlight on it all the time.
Yeah. Because like you said, it's one part of us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think just the normalizing part of it. It's like you saying, hey, I like pizza. Obviously it's not the same. But it's like, cool. Onwards we go. Yeah. Like, can we approach it with a similar acceptance of it's not a big fuss, it's not a big, quote unquote, big deal, while still recognizing that it is something that is unique to someone. So I know there's maybe some element of like, quote unquote, contradiction of don't make it a big deal, but it is a big deal.
It's hard. Yeah.
It is, because we don't want to dismiss it, but we also don't want to shine a spotlight on it and make it someone's entire identity, entire existence. And so I do think it is a constant balance, constant dance of, yes, it's great, and there's so much more to you that makes you you.
Right.
While not dismissing that this is an important part of you that has a big role in how you live your life. It's not a but, it's and.
Like, I think of it a little bit like how we've approached racism. We want to go about and like treat everyone as equal, but at the same time, we have to recognize that people of color also have different lived experience and encounter challenges that white people don't.
Yep.
Yeah.
Bingo. You hit that right on the head.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think you hit it on the head because, again, this is identity, and you're also talking about an element of intersectionality, where if we were looking at racism as one piece, let's say people of color, and we're putting, a catch-all people of color, but obviously there's a billion subcategories of that.
Yeah.
But let's say for people of color, while we want to acknowledge you are human, you have rights, you have experiences that are your own. You have people who you love, blah, 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 just normal human experience. And your culture, your skin tone, where you live in the world, all of those factors, and then some, are going to play a huge part in how you move through the world.
Yeah.
So again, it's an and rather than a but. It's the exact same thing, and we can then add more layers to it. So if we look at queer people of color, trans people of color, now we're just adding more complexity, more intersections to it, where we're looking at queer and trans people of color as having their own unique identities that are shaped by those intersections of the identities, and they are still human who deserve love and kindness and respect and basic human rights and housing and.
Yeah, so it's the normalizing, but also keeping in mind all those other layers, as we like.
This can be a good segue to talking about love is love, where kind of coming back to Pride Month, Pride celebration, I think that when we say, and by we, I mean people, whether it's people celebrating Pride, whether it's allies, advocates, people in the community, when we say love is love, I think it's really appealing to say, hey, we're the same as everyone else. We deserve love in the same way that everyone else does. And I want to add an asterisk in there to be able to recognize that queer and trans love is different. Yeah. And it has, and again, and not but, it has unique challenges that exist as a result of those identities. And it's not a bad thing, it's just different. And I think we need to make room for that difference rather than sliding it under the normative, love is love, we love just like you straight people or you cis people. Not quite, because we don't. Yeah. And it's not a bad thing. Yeah. It's just a different kind of love, and it's all beautiful, and it's all accepted, and we want it to be seen as a normal part of society. We just also need to recognize that it has different layers to it, and that's okay.
Because, we love catchphrases, right? And that's definitely...
It's appealing.
That's connected to Pride. It's just really hard to simplify things that are so complex. Yeah.
We just live in one big nuance.
Yeah. Yeah. You've been listening to Living Fully, a Calgary Counseling Centre podcast. Thank you for tuning in. This episode was produced by Nick Here, Layla Ruggles, Louisa Campos, Juliana Adair, Jenna Forbes, and by me, Catherine Hertig. A special thanks to Rasha Taha. Tune in on June 23rd as we continue our conversation on LGBTQ+ mental health and Pride Month.
Queer and trans folks are incredibly resilient, they're incredibly creative, and they have been surviving for eons. It's really paramount to acknowledge that we have always found ways to continue existing, despite oppression, despite discrimination, despite real threat and violence. Just by folks being themselves, I see that as a source of hope.
Yeah. To stay up to date on our latest episodes, be sure to subscribe. We're available in your favorite podcast app. Living Fully is a production of Calgary Counseling Centre and recorded in Calgary on Treaty 7 territory. Living Fully podcast is not a substitute or alternative for professional care or treatment. Calgary Counseling Centre and Counseling Alberta provide effective counseling to anyone in Alberta with no waitlist and no financial barriers. Find us online at calgarycounseling.com and counselingalberta.com. For help across Canada and the United States, call 211. If you are outside of Canada and the US, seek help from your general medical practitioner.